sub. Wow. That's how long apparently I've been affiliate. Good reminder. So, all right. So I was thinking David because I saw the ark return to Israel. No, this is before David because we're only in 1 Samuel. We need 2 Samuel really to get into David. So let's get into it. When the ark of the Lord had been in Philistine territory 7 months, the Philistines called the priest and the diviners and said, "What shall we do with this ark of the Lord? Tell us how we should send it back to its place." It puts away the hype for David. Yeah, I was getting a little ahead of myself. They answered, "If you return the ark of the God of Israel, do not send it back to him without a gift. By all means, send a guilt offering to him." Oh, wow. That's a fascinating thought. A guilt offering. We haven't gone through the offerings yet, but that's interesting that that's the choice. Not a sin offering, a guilt offering. Then you will be healed, and you will know why his hand has not been lifted from you. The Philistines asked, "What guilt offering should we send him?" They replied, 5 gold tumors and 5 gold rats, according to the number of Philistine rulers, because the same plague has struck both you and your rulers. Make models of the tumors and of the rats that are destroying the country, and give glory to Israel's God. Perhaps he will lift, I love the perhaps. Perhaps he will lift his hand from you and your gods and your land. That should give you images when you say perhaps he will. This is what is a normal response when someone finds out about God in the Old Testament and they're a foreigner. They say, perhaps God will do this. We see this in Jonah. Perhaps God will relent, is what the king says. So we're going to put on sackcloth and ashes. In fact, all the animals, the livestock, are going to put on sackcloth and ashes, and perhaps God will relent of this calamity that he has promised to bring us. Hey, ukulele, good to see you this morning, friend. So, but interesting too, if you didn't notice, they're making gold tumors and they're making gold rats. Why? Because those are the plagues that have come upon the people. So they're making tumors and rats out of gold to send as gifts. Perhaps he will lift your hand and you're okay. Why do you harden your hearts as the Egyptians and Pharaoh did? Look at this. This is not the Israelites. This is the Philistines who know the story of the people of Israel coming out of Egypt and Pharaoh hardening his heart. When Israel's God dealt harshly with them, did they not send the Israelites out so they could go their own way? I agree. Just some guy that is a question that I think is worth asking. Wondering why Philistines didn't say, "Hey, Israel's God is doing a whole lot more than ours ever did. Let's worship him." Yeah, that is a great thought question. I'm not sure how to really wrestle with that question and think it through because it's really hard to get into the mind of an ancient person. And then to get into the mind of an ancient person that isn't the ancient people who are writing scripture is even harder. But just think about a different direction for a moment. How hard is it for you to root for the team that is against your sports team? So I don't know if you're watching March Madness. I'm not. But let me just point out, I'm not a fan of. I was just there, and I have family there, so this isn't that. I'm not a fan of the teams from out east. I'll just limit it to that. The teams from states out east. I'm not a fan. I don't root for them. I root for teams that are in the Big Ten Conference. So Would I switch just because they're better teams and better players and they always defeat the Big Ten teams? Would I switch allegiance to them based on their performance, or would I still believe that those, even though that my team's never done it, my school's never done it, my conference has never done it, that I'm going to hold firm to it? And I know it's a different realm, but I'm just asking that question of how to think through that. So, but good question. I like that question. And I wish I could answer it more deeply and get into the mind of someone, but I don't really know why it is. Unless there's a little bit of loyalty, unless there's a holding on to the past, unless there's a holding on to tradition, or maybe there's still well, at least he's our God and that's their God. We can't take their God. I don't know. Maybe they thought that their battle victory meant it would be too humbling to do that. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. They are too humiliated to be able to turn to the true God. Yeah, maybe it's like an abusive relationship where the victim is made to think it's their fault. Oh, that's another thought too. Yeah, that kind of a relationship where you're in it and you're stuck in it and you don't see a way out and you can't get out. There's a psychological aspect. Yeah. Yeah, there are instances. This is our side, and we have to do it. It's interesting though, is when we're coming at it from the perspective saying, "Well, this is the true God. Why wouldn't you jump sides and go to the true God instead of a false God who can't do anything?" I think. Well, this is a good example, but I think the one that really gets me is whole Elijah and the prophets of Baal battle royale. It's like, why wouldn't everyone at the end of that immediately say, "Hey, let's go serve the true God"? And I was given the example of the Ninevites, who do. The king essentially does say, and there are times where other kings do say, we're going to worship the true God. However, even if they declare that, it doesn't seem to permeate the people on a deep level or a lasting level. Even take the example of we're reading through Genesis, and Pharaoh giving Joseph so much control and knowing the power of Joseph's God and giving land and blessing Joseph's family based on who Joseph is and who his God is. And then the people end up slaves in Egypt. How does that happen? I mean, it's the same kind of, you might be there for a while, but in the end, they're all returning back. So yeah. Good questions. Good questions get you thinking. I like that question. We could ponder that a whole lot more and probably not get any further into understanding it. But yeah, good thought. Why is it that people, just take people in your own life who don't believe in God, and you have an instance of prayer, or they do, or some mutual person that you know does. You pray about it. God answers prayer. Everyone is aware of the answer to prayer. There's no doubts about whether God did or did not do what he said he would do. And they still are like, oh, that's nice. I'm glad God did that, but still not going to worship God. Might be some similar thoughts in regard to that. All right, well, let's go back to our text. All right, so, sorry. Now then, get a new cart ready. See, not an old cart, a new cart, with 2 cows that have calved and have never been yoked. So it's getting the finest, the best here. Hitch the cows to the cart, but take their calves away and pen them up. Take the ark of the Lord and put it on the cart, and in a chest beside it put the gold objects you are sending back to him as a guilt offering. Send it on its way, but keep watching it. If it goes up to its own territory towards Beth Shemesh, then the Lord has brought this great disaster on us. If it does not, then we will know that it was not his hand that struck us, but that it happened to us by chance. All right. I'm wondering what that word is. So we're in 1 Samuel 6. verse 9. Up. Chance. There we go. Mikra. Unforeseen meeting of event, accident, happening, chance, fortune, accident, chances, fortune, fate. Okay. All right, not much there. Sometimes there are words that have literal interpretations or meanings, and I just curious, so I look it up when I'm curious. So there we go. So we can add that to our count. Boom. Now it's just a running count, and I got to figure out how to reset this, but I think what I'm going to do is this is the running count for the month. It's not accurate. I didn't get it set up at the beginning of the month, but we're just going to do it that way. We're going to run it for the month and see at the end of the month, how many words have I looked up? So not super exciting. Chance just was chance. By chance. So they did this. They took 2 such cows and hitched them to the cart and penned up their calves. They placed the ark of the Lord on the cart along with the chest containing the gold rats and the models of the tumors. Notice how many times they keep mentioning by name the rats, the tumors, the rats, the tumors. They could have just said the gold items. But no, they're making sure that we know tumors and rats, tumors and rats, tumors and rats. Yeah, it's interesting they came up with a response that makes sense to them. Yeah, there is this understanding of how gods work and operate, and so they're trying to operate within that understanding. Part of it's causing the problems, send it away. Well, how do we make sure that the problem goes with it and it doesn't stay with us? Okay, then we're going to send this away. Well, but we also want to know, this is an interesting thing. Okay, I was just watching a video on regards to this, and we had this mentioned too, and I didn't talk about it when it says Joseph he was talking to his brothers. Don't you know I can figure this out by divination? Okay, we probably hear the word divination and we only think of occult type things. I don't know what info you have or don't have, but reading tea leaves would be one of those examples. Palm reading would be one of those examples. Killing animals and then doing stuff with them to discern knowledge, information, those are all ways. But it's a way of understanding the truth. That's an old idea of how you could do that. You look at something and it tells you this or this. We have examples of the Israelites doing this too. Why wouldn't they do it? If the foreign gods, who aren't real gods, can give people insight through divination, why wouldn't and couldn't the true God do that? And in the Old Testament, he does. He does that often. I don't mean often in the sense of it's all the time. I mean often in the sense that we can cite examples of it. So interpreting dreams would be one thought of how divination takes place. Casting of lots is another example of how divination takes place. So Joseph labels himself divination. Here they're saying, let's find out if this is really from God or if this is foreign chance. And this is the way. Which way the cart turns and goes without direction, just the animals themselves will tell us which it is. And so you often in either this or this. When you're like casting lots and such like that, it's one of those kinds of things where it's a this or this. It's a 50-50 chance, or it might be spinning a wheel kind of a thing where everybody's name is in there, or put all the names in a hat and draw them out. So those kinds of things, they are relying on the gods or God to tell them. And then there is, we're not in Leviticus, and I can never remember these names, but there's these 2 things that are on the ephod of the priest, which are supposed to be, and we don't fully know what these were. So we can spend a little time looking at when you get there. But it sounds like some kind of items for a stone that would be tossed and it would give you information, and kind of like a yes I don't want to say a magic 8 ball, but that kind of idea of you shake it and you look at it and it says the answer is certain, or it is unclear. That kind of a divination kind of process. All right, I know I got off the sidetrack there again, but didn't they try to contact the Israelites on their God directly? Oh yeah, thank you, God. The Urim and the Thummim. Yes, that's what I was thinking of. Yeah, and he placed the breastpiece on him, and in the breastpiece he put the Urim and the Thummim. Yes, thank you. Wow, I'm always impressed by little obscure things like this. I think they're obscure. They're not things that most Christians are going to know about. So to remember where that is and what those are, well, that's impressive. That is impressive. So thank you for throwing that in there. Well, yeah, interesting thought. If they went directly to, yeah, there could be some other reasons why they wouldn't do that, because it's God who's doing this, not the people of Israel. And the people of Israel aren't really good at following God. So this is a way for them to go directly to God, if that makes sense. I think that's what they're thinking is we're going to get it, we're going to send it away. And, well, we don't really want that. Well, it could also be we don't really want them to have it back. We want it to disappear and it get lost. We want it gone from us, but we don't want them to have it either. Maybe there's a piece of that within. I don't know for sure, but good question. All right, where were we at? Oh yeah, I got sidetracked by the gold rats and the tumors. Then the cows went straight up toward Beth Shemesh, keeping on the road and lowing all the way. They did not turn to the right or to the left. The rulers of the Philistines followed them as far as the border of Beth Shemesh. Now the people of Beth Shemesh were having their wheat in the harvesting, their wheat in the valley, and when they looked up, they saw the ark. Then they rejoiced at the sight. The cart came to the field of Joshua of Beth Shemesh, and there it stopped beside a large rock. The people chopped up the wood of the cart and sacrificed the cows as a burnt offering to the Lord. Look at this response. This is an interesting thing. Sorry. This is how they respond when they see the cart. They rejoice. Got that. They chop up the wood and they offer the cows as burnt offerings. These cows, okay, do you remember the description? These cows had just calved. What does that mean? They have full udders. We could milk these cows for some time and have milk. What are we going to do with these cows? Let's sacrifice them to God. They're brand new, lovely cows. They're in the prime of breeding stock. Let's sacrifice those cows to God. And oh, look at this brand new cart they gave us. That's going to burn wonderfully. This is not how I would respond. Let me just tell you that. Let's cast lots and see who gets the cart. Let's have a toast with milk here. Let's cast lots and see who gets to keep the cows. No, that's not their response. Their response is, this has been returned to us. Let's praise God and let's take these other things and let's sacrifice them. The Levites took down the ark of the Lord. Oh, just a second. Let me finish this, and I realized I didn't plug my computer in. You know what? I should just plug it in to make sure I do not run out of battery power. Be right back. Sorry about that. One of the things that happens when you move from site to site. Yeah, funny stuff. Oh, all right. So we were the burnt offering. So the Levites took down the ark of the Lord together with the chest containing all the objects. Okay, we're not going to go into it, but the Levites are the only ones allowed to touch the ark. So that's an important piece that you might just say, oh, they did it. No, other people who touch it when they're not supposed to have things happen to them. So, and they placed them on the large rock on the day the people of Beth Shemesh offered burnt offerings and made sacrifices. The 5 rulers of the Philistines saw all this and returned the same day to Ekron. So they're hanging out and watching what the people do. These are the gold tumors the Philistines sent as a guilt offering to the Lord, 1 each for Ashdod, Gaza, Ashkelon, Gath, and Ekron. Okay, so this is all of their locations. And the number of the gold rats was according to the number of the Philistine towns belonging to the 5 rulers, the fortified towns with their country villages. A large rock on which the Levites set the rock of the Lord is a witness to this day in the field of Joshua of Beth Shemesh. We have that phrase again. If you've been with us, we see that phrase throughout Joshua and Judges, and it's there to this day. So now that we're in the next historical book, we're in 1 Samuel, and it's there to this day. We also have the large rock on which they set it, a Ebenezer, a stone of help, a monument designating something that God has done. When you see the rock, you're supposed to ask, why is that rock there? Well, let me tell you, friend, about what God did for me. I love that they just use rocks to signify things that God did. Not giant monuments like we do. We want big, giant monuments. They just set up a stone and say, hey, look, there's an Ebenezer over here. What's that all about? Oh, yeah. Yeah, you're looking for the Ebenezers in the stream. Oh, yeah, that's a nice one. Yeah, when they pull them out of the Jordan River and stack them up. Yeah. And you're looking for the Ebenezers in the stream, the live stream. Aha, like the pun there. So, yeah, the places where God shows up and you set it up and boom, there's an Ebenezer. My problem with doing that is if you do that in your yard, people just think it's landscaping. They don't ask you much about it. We want diamonds that are nice, flashy, and shiny to point to things like, oh, hey, I'm married or I'm engaged. Or I'm wealthy, whatever the case may be, depending on the size of the rock that you're pointing to. Interesting. All right. But God struck down some of the inhabitants of Beth Shemesh, putting 70 of them to death because they looked into the ark of the Lord. The people mourned because the heavy blow the Lord had dealt them. And the people of Beth Shemesh asked, who can stand in the presence of the Lord, this holy God, to whom will the ark go up from here? I want to see what that 70 is. Is this wow, a few manuscripts have 50,070. That's interesting. So yeah, I was mentioning the power of the ark. So they looked into the ark of the Lord. They weren't supposed to look in it, touch it. It's the priests who are to do that. Oh, yeah, it's the only stone emote. I got that. Ah, that's an interesting idea. I'm going to have to get a rock emote. Make a note of that. Ebenezer emote. Ebenezer emote. That'll be fun. Yeah, that's a great. Hey, Artsy Bible Nerd. Good to have you here, friend. So yeah, then we can put some Ebenezers in the chat. That'd be fun. All right, so here we have the ark is returned to God. The Philistines are trying to get rid of it. The people are rejoicing, but some of them were taking the thought kind of that I was along the lines of, why would we sacrifice this stuff? This stuff's pretty good. Let's keep it to ourselves. So they have this attitude, let's look into the ark. Let's go touch it. Let's go do whatever we're not supposed to do. And a number of them die, and then the rest of the town gets terrified. Then they sent messengers to the people of Kiriath Jearim, saying, "The Philistines have returned the ark of the Lord. Come down and take it up to your town." So the men of Kiriath Jearim came and took up the ark of the Lord. They brought it to Abinadab's house on the hill and consecrated Eleazar his son to guard the ark of the Lord. The ark remained at Kiriath Jearim a long time, 20 years in all. So they have someone come, take it, and Eleazar comes, the son of Abinadab, and he is the one guarding it. Where are we? We are in 1 Samuel. Sorry about that. So we just started in chapter 7. So we had the ark in the Philistine country. It was doing havoc, and they said, "We need to get rid of this. What do we do?" Well, let's send it back to the people of Israel, and we'll send offerings with it, guilt offerings. So now they have the ark back, and it's there for 20 years. And, well, that's probably, we picked this story up when I was thinking we were getting to, when I saw the ark is returned. David is going to go and get it, but we got to wait 20 years before that happens. So when all the people of Israel turned back to the Lord, so Samuel said to all the Israelites, "If you are returning to the Lord with all your hearts, then rid yourself of the foreign gods and the Ashtoreths, and commit yourself to the Lord and serve him only, and he will deliver you out of the hands of the Philistines." So the Israelites put away the Baals and the Ashtoreths and served the Lord only. Then Samuel said, "Assemble all Israel at Mizpah." Okay, I just a thought here that we have this phrase, or it's repeated, or this idea of all of Israel is assembled. Just think about whatever state you live in, or country, if you're not in the United States, or even if you're in a large city. Let's just think of that. What if all of New York City assembled together? Could it physically happen? No. Times Square is not big enough. Yankee Stadium's not big enough. You couldn't do that. So when it's saying all of Israel is assembled, we don't and we shouldn't just make this assumption that all means every single person that's alive there. All means that no group was not represented. So all 12 tribes would have been there. That would be the all of Israel. So just thinking in terms of that, it's kind of like if you had a family reunion, you'd say, "Oh, everybody was there." And then you might ask, "Oh, what about so-and-so?" "Oh, no, they weren't there." "Oh, what about so-and-so?" "Oh, no, they weren't there." But you could still say, "Well, everybody was there." Why? Because there were only a few missing. Yeah, we had everybody. Except. So when all of Israel is assembled, we don't need to audit. I mean, that would really be weird for every single person in an entire country to go to one city within that country. Or like I said, within a state. Or even all of New York City all assembled. Well, let's just pick Central Park. Yeah, all of them are assembled in Central Park. The entire city at Central Park. It's not big enough to hold them all. So just thinking about that, just when you think about that, think through, well, how many were there? How many could be there? How long would it take to assemble? It's representatives of everyone who are there. So we would say all were there. Yeah, often as one man, is used. Yeah, exactly. There's a representation there of everyone. Therefore, everyone is present. So when they had assembled at Mizpah, they drew water and poured it out before the Lord. On that day, they fasted, and there they confessed, "We have sinned against the Lord." Now Samuel was serving as leader. This probably says judge. That's what I'm going to guess the footnote is. Yes, judge. Why are they using that word? Because that's the word for leaders who judged the people, who ruled over the people before there were kings. So they are being consistent. He is the prophet. He is the judge. He is the one who is called by God, who leads the people for a period of time. We're not into the time of the kings yet, so they're being consistent with that idea and word. Okay, so they are confessing their sins, and they are fasting. When the Philistines heard that Israel had assembled at Mizpah, the rulers of the Philistines came up to attack them. When the Israelites heard of it, they were afraid because of the Philistines. They said to Samuel, "Do not stop crying out to the Lord our God for us, that he may rescue us from the hands of the Philistines." Then Samuel took a suckling lamb and sacrificed it as a whole burnt offering to the Lord. He cried out to the Lord on Israel's behalf, and the Lord answered him. Okay, so interesting here, just in comparison, they sacrificed the two cows who had given birth and were still had cows that were suckling. Here, they take the other end of it and they sacrifice a lamb who's a suckling lamb. Just, not, I don't know there's anything significant there, but just that's an interesting little note to pay attention to. When Samuel was sacrificing the burnt offering, the Philistines drew near to engage Israel in battle. But that day the Lord thundered with loud thunder against the Philistines and threw them into such a panic that they were routed by the Israelites. The men of Israel rushed out of Mizpah and pursued the Philistines, slaughtering them along the way to a point below Beth-kar. Then Samuel took a stone and set it up between Mizpah and Shen, and he called it Ebenezer, saying, "Thus far the Lord has helped us." We're talking about Ebenezer. Boom. There we go. Full-fledged Ebenezer, stone of help. Thus far the Lord has helped us. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. That's why we need it. I need an emote that's Ebenezer. We get some Ebenezer's booming in the chat there. So the Philistines were subdued, and they stopped invading Israel's territory throughout Samuel's lifetime. Okay, so notice that point. So Samuel does this, is the leader who does it. They stop. Yeah, but we'll see when Saul is king, there's a change. Interesting. I'm not going to go there. Just an interesting thought I had. The towns from Ekron to Gath, that the Philistines had captured from Israel were restored to Israel. And Israel delivered the neighboring territories from the hands of the Philistines. And there was peace between Israel and the Amorites. Look at the side deal happens here. We see what you did over there. We want peace over here. We're not willing to go to battle with you. Not right now. Well, let's figure out some peaceful things. Samuel continued as Israel's leader all the days of his life. From year to year, he went up on a circuit from Bethel to Gilgal to Mizpah, judging Israel in all those places. Here they left the word judging. They didn't change it to leading. But he always went back to Ramah, where his home was, and there he also held court for Israel, and he built an altar there to the Lord. So this is an interesting thing we don't often focus on, is this idea of he is holding court and he is judging people. He goes around, they bring disputes to him. He's a circuit riding judge is what we see here. He goes from town to town to town. He makes his circuit of going there, and all the court cases come. If you know anything, there are circuit court judges that we still have in the world today. They oversee a circuit of lower courts and such. And so yeah, there's still that same idea of disputes get brought to someone, and you sometimes have to wait for the judge to be available to bring that case before the judge. So we've got the establishment of Samuel. He's doing well. Although Israel is returning to God. This This should be a wonderful direction that they're going in. And now it's going to change. When Samuel grew old, he appointed his sons as Israel's leaders, judges. The name of the first was Joel, and the name of the second was Abijah. And they served at Beersheba, but his sons did not follow his ways. They turned aside after dishonest gain and accepted bribes and perverted justice. Okay, just a side note thought here. We have Eli at the beginning of the story, whose sons are corrupt, and Samuel replaces Eli because Eli's sons are corrupt. Here we have Samuel and his sons are corrupt. And Samuel seems to be as good as you can get. So, do we blame Samuel for this? Do we blame his sons? Is something that Samuel did wrong? I'm just trying to pose this question for those of you who are parents. Not all of you are, but parents. And, just saw the redeem there. I'll do that second, Artsy. Parents who children don't end up living the way that you raised them. Here we have two priests or judge or prophet, depending upon how you're looking at these, and they don't end up serving God. Their kids don't. So, just interesting thought there. All right, so I see there is a redeem. So let's see. There is the hat I was wearing, and let's go with a nice light brown one. All right. For some reason, I only see that in my sidebar, so I don't know how long that was there, Artsy Bible Nerd. I need to figure out how to get an alert when someone does that. I don't know exactly how that works. I'll have to figure that out. So, all right. So anyway, just that thought of how our kids turn out is not always dependent upon what we ourselves do. Oh, it just came up? Okay. And as I say, you don't see it here in the feed, and there's no alert that showed up, so I just glanced over, saw it, so I just wanted to apologize if it had been there. Thank you. All right, so all the elders of Israel gathered together and came to Samuel at Ramah. They said to him, "You are old, and your sons do not follow your ways. Now appoint a king to judge," still the same word, "to lead us such as the other nations have." Okay, so the people identify, I want to point this out, the people identify a legitimate problem. Samuel is old, his sons don't follow his way. They have identified a legitimate problem. But their suggestion is not the right answer to solve the problem. But when they said, "Give us a king to lead us," this displeased Samuel. Why does it displease Samuel? Let's just pause a minute before we read. Does it displease Samuel because it dishonors him? Because they're rejecting his sons? Or is it because it's displeasing to God, therefore it's displeasing to Samuel? I'm going to say those are the two choices. Let's see what happens. So he prayed to the Lord, and the Lord told him, "Listen to all that the people are saying to you. It is not you they have rejected." So why does God say that? Because I think Samuel is feeling that. But they have rejected me as their king, as they have done from the day I brought them up out of Egypt until this day, forsaking me and serving other gods, so they are doing to you. Now listen to them, but warn them solemnly, and let them know what the king who will reign over them will claim as his rights. That's an interesting turn of phrase. The king is going to claim as his rights. We often think about the rightful king. Why is it the rightful king? Because he has the right to be king. But do we often think about the rights a king has? Well, we're going to learn about those in a minute. Samuel told all the words of the Lord to the people who were asking for a king. He said, "This is what the king who will reign over you will claim as his right." He will take your sons and make them serve with his chariots and horses, and they will run in front of his chariots. Some he will assign to be commanders of thousands and commanders of fifties, and others to plow his ground and reap his harvest, and still others to make weapons of war and equip for his chariots. He will take your daughters to be perfumers and cooks and bakers. He will take the best of your fields and vineyards and olive groves and give them to his attendants. He will take a tenth of your grain and of your vintage and give it to his officials and attendants, your male and female slaves, and the best of your cattle and donkeys he will take for his own use. Young men. Interesting. But he will take a tenth of your flocks, and you yourself will become his slaves. When that day comes, you will cry out for relief from the king you have chosen, but the Lord will not answer you in that day. But the people refused to listen to Samuel. No, they said, we want a king over us. Then we will be like the other nations, with a king to lead us and to go before us and fight our battles. Okay, here is the reason it is bad, is because their motivation is to be like other nations. God pointed out to Samuel, they didn't reject Samuel, they were rejecting God. Samuel was feeling rejected, and God said, no, it's not you they're rejecting, it's me. The first ever, it's not you, it's me conversation that we have recorded is between Samuel and God. It's not you, it's me that they're rejecting. Different take on that. Yes, they want to be like Egypt. They want to be like the Philistines. They want to be like the Ammonite. They want to be like everybody else. Why can't we do that too? Why can't we have a king? Interesting, though, if you caught it here, the king will take a tenth. A tenth would be tithe. We often think of tithe is what you give to God. Here, Samuel is declaring it's going to be to the king, not to God. So tithing was taxing in this regard. And then look at the description. It is your sons, it is your daughter, it is your field, it is your grain, it is your wine, it is your cattle, it's your donkeys, it's the livestock, it's everything you have. And then you know what? You yourselves will become slaves. Why? Because you can't afford not to be, because you've got to pay for the king that you wanted. All right, so who still wants a king? The answer should be, oh, no, I didn't know that was what was going to happen. Yeah, okay, we knew, Samuel, your kids were the problem. We thought this was a good solution. Clearly, we were wrong. That's the correct answer, but their answer is, no, that sounds great. Sign me up. How soon can I sign my mortgage over to you? And hey, how about I just do direct deposit? I don't need to ever see my money. Just take my check and just go straight into your account. Yeah, that's what I want. I want a king that takes all my money and all my children and all my lives. Oh, this is going to be so good. Oh, I can't wait. Yep. They say, sounds good. When Samuel heard all the people said, he repeated it before the Lord, and the Lord answered, listen to them and give them a king. Then Samuel said to the Israelites, everyone go back to your own town. So, all right, everyone go back. I'm going to take care of this. I'm going to work on it. Yeah, it's not easier to serve a king than God, but it's what the people wanted. Yeah. And it's interesting just to think about what we have in our minds of what a powerful ruler does for us. They provide security and safety and stability, and we want to sacrifice most anything to get that. Maybe he promised them, no, not getting political. Yeah. Well, the thing is a king doesn't make campaign promises, so the king doesn't have to promise anything. This is in a lot of ways, this is the worst kind of system. We're just going to pick somebody and you're stuck with them. How's that for a political system? And then you know what? If their kids stink, you're stuck with them. Yeah, that's what we want. We want a birthright system, not a person based on merit, based on qualifications. Okay, yeah, we could get political, but it digresses very quickly. All right, so now we're going to find who this person is. Now, I don't know if we've covered it. I'm trying to think of if we have. No, we haven't yet, but let me go look a minute here. Genesis. Yeah, so we're this close to covering it. So I will remind you of this next week in Genesis, but I believe it's in Genesis when Jacob is blessing all of his sons upon his death. He's giving them a final blessing that he states that the scepter will not be removed from the tribe of Judah. Judah is the one where the scepter, the kingship, is going to come from. So we'll read that, I believe, next week. So that being in the back of your minds, the people should have that in the back of their minds. They should already be aware of that, know that. Let's read through the description here and see if there's any more red flags that people should be aware of. Not if the all this sounds good, we're going to have awful things happen, red flags, but, are you picking the right guy kind of red flags? Hey, yeah, if they didn't like Samuel's kids as leader, a king wouldn't solve the issue long term if king's kids become the new king. Yeah, exactly. Like, you have Eli's kids are bad, and so you get Samuel, you get a reprieve. Then Samuel's kids are bad. I mean, why are you thinking a king's kids will always be good? Yeah. They may not have even had to campaign for votes, but there were real benefits to having people like them, like not having the people rise against them. Oh, yeah, having people for you is always better than people against you. All right, so there was a Benjamite. Okay, so we have it right here already. A Benjamite. That's not of the tribe of Judah. A man of standing whose name was Kish, son of Abiel, the son of Zeror, the son of Becherath, the son of Aphiah of Benjamin. Kish had a son named Saul, a handsome and young man, as could be found anywhere in Israel, and he was a head taller than everyone else. All right. I wanted to look up Saul. What does the name Saul mean? Whose name was da 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 da. Not gonna look up all the other names. Oh, does it not actually have Saul in the? Doesn't actually have it there. Oh no. Oh, it says verse 2. I thought it was verse 1. Whose name was Saul. Desired. Isn't that an interesting name? The one that the people desire to be king, his name is Desired. Anybody see something going on there? Anyway. Oh, and then the head taller. This is always the fascinating thing. Yeah, he's a head taller. It's an interesting note, and it continues throughout that then he's not willing. He's a head taller than everyone else, and he's not willing to fight Goliath, who's a head taller than him. So he's always had the advantage, and now since he doesn't have the advantage, but that's side thought. Now the donkeys belonging to Saul's father Kish were lost. And Kish said to his son Saul, "Take one of the servants with you and go and look for the donkeys." So he passed through the hill country of Ephraim and through the area around Shalish. But they did not find them. They went on into the district of Sha'alim, but the donkeys were not there. Then he passed through the territory of Benjamin, but they did not find them. When they reached the city of Zuph, Saul said to the servant who was with him, "Come, let's go back, or my father will stop thinking about the donkeys and start worrying about us." So they've been gone quite a bit of time. And so now he's worried, oh no, Dad's going to start worrying about us and less about the donkeys. But the servant replied, "Look, in this town there is a man of God. He is highly respected, and everything he says come true. Let's go there. Perhaps he can tell us what way to take." So let's go to him. Maybe he can help us out. He's a man of God. I mean, maybe it's a trivial thing, looking for donkeys, but maybe he'll help. Saul said to his servant, "If we go, what can we give the man?" Okay, here, look at this. Interesting. Is this to bless him or to bribe him? And I don't mean bribe in the sense of pay him off to get the right answer, but bribe in the sense of we have to pay to get him to ask of God, kind of a thing. The food in our sack is gone. We have no gift to take the man of God. What do we have? Okay, so gift. Okay, so what can we take to give? And now here he says gift. Okay, so that's the thought. We need to bless him. The servant answered him again. "Look," he said, "I have a quarter of a shekel of silver. I will give it to the man of God so that he will tell us what way to take." Formerly in Israel, if someone went to inquire of God, they would say, "Come, let us go see the seer," because the prophet of today used to be called a seer. So they were called seers because they could see things that God revealed to them. So that's what's going on. So they're giving you this little tidbit of information saying, hey, this is what it used to be. Now we have more insight to different naming things. So, "Good," Saul said to his servant, "come, let's go." So they set out from the town where the man of God, for the town where the man of God was. As they were going up the hill to the town, they met some young women coming out to draw water and asked them, "Is the seer here?" "He is," they answered. "He's ahead of you. Hurry now. He has just come out to our town today, for the people have a sacrifice at the high place. As soon as you enter the town, you will find him before he goes up to the high place to eat. The people will not be eating until he comes, because he must bless the sacrifice. Afterwards, those who are invited will eat. Go up now. You should find him about this time." So you got here at just the right time. He's right here. He's waiting. He's got something else to do. If you hurry, you can get in touch with him and talk with him before he does the other things he has to do, and then he's going to be busy. They went up to the town. As they were entering, there was Samuel coming toward them on his way up to the high place. Now, the day before Saul came, the Lord had revealed this to Samuel. "About this time tomorrow, I will send you a man from the land of Benjamin. Anoint him ruler over all people Israel. He will deliver them from the hand of the Philistines. I have looked on my people, for their cry has reached me." So Samuel, who, remember when we started the book, it said that words from God were not common in that time. They were rare. And now Samuel again hears from God of tomorrow at this time, the one I've chosen as ruler is coming. When Samuel caught sight of Saul, the Lord said to him, "This is the man I spoke to you about. He will govern my people." Saul approached Samuel in the gateway and asked, "Would you please tell me where the seer's house is?" I am the seer, Samuel replied. Go up ahead of me to the high place, for today you are to eat with me, and in the morning I will send you on your way and will tell you all that is in your heart. As for the donkeys you lost 3 days ago, do not worry about them. They have been found. And to whom is all the desire of Israel turned, if not to you and your whole family line? All right, so Samuel sees him, engages him, or I should say the other way around. Saul sees Samuel but doesn't know who he is. Samuel confronts him and says, yeah, hey, great to meet you. Glad you're here. We're going to go have dinner. Oh, BTW, the donkeys you were looking for, they were found 3 days ago. As for the donkeys you lost 3 days ago, oh, sorry, they were lost 3 days ago, not found 3 days ago. The donkeys have been found. So they've been searching for 3 days, going all over the place, looking for the donkeys. The donkeys have been found. So, unsolicited answer. Is that not amazing? Should that not be astounding to Saul? Saul answered, but am I not a Benjamite from the smallest tribe of Israel? And is not my clan the least of all the clans of the tribes of Benjamin? Why do you say such a thing to me? What did he say? And to whom is all the desire of Israel turned? So all the desire of Israel is turned to him and his family line. So this reply here sounds a whole lot like Gideon. I am the worthless, and our clan is worthless, and I'm the worthless runt of my family. Why would you want me? So Saul seemingly has the same attitude and approach, or I could look at it differently, self-esteem that Gideon does. The same view of himself and his people. Now, in some ways, this could be good. It good possibility. It's not for Saul. If someone had a humble view and this was coming from a humble approach. However, this is not necessarily coming from a humble approach or thought process. It's coming from an insignificance and evaluation of himself, which is not because of being humble. It's not necessarily a good thing. Then Samuel brought Saul and his servants into the hall and seated them there at the head of those who were invited. Okay, so if you remember, Jesus says this. When you go to a banquet, seat at the lowest place, and the host may say, don't sit there, friend, and move you to the head of the table and force the person who is at the head of the table to move because he wants you as the honored guest. That's a much better scenario than going and sitting at the head of the table and being braggadocious about, hey, look, I got the best seat, and the host having to come and tell you to move. Go sit at the kiddie table. That's not how Jesus said it, but that's how I'll say it. So we have an actual occurrence here. I wonder if Jesus didn't have this in mind, or the people did when they heard Jesus make mention of this. So about 30 in number. So that's how many are at the hall for this feast. Samuel said to the cook, bring the piece of meat I gave you, the one I told you to lay aside. I've been doing the best. So first time chatter, Joseph Coolby Boy. Glad to have you in here, friend. So you've been doing the best to read the Bible. Recently, I've been told to read the book of John if you want to start as a new believer. Should I read the Old Testament or start with John? I think you can start with any of the Gospels to read through. So John is a good one. I think Mark is also a good one to read through. So yeah, glad you understand and know God is real. You're welcome in here, friend. We jump around from different place to different place each day of the week. So right now we just started Mark, and we're reading Mark on Sundays, or whenever I make that up, because I don't always get in here on Sundays. But I don't think there is a wrong place to start reading. And yes, I do think the Old Testament is valuable. We're reading about things that lead up to David and are going to point to the New Testament, to Jesus and what he does. So, yeah, I would start with Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Those would be the first four things I would read. And then I might go back and read Genesis. And we're about finished with that. So, is it okay if I just... Okay, I'll wait and see. Should I read the whole page to page, or would it be good to take verse and verses? Well, yeah, I say what we're doing is we're reading through whole sections at a time, but the biggest thing take a verse each time and remember. Well, I think that scripture memorization is good. I think by reading repeatedly and learning and understanding it also is beneficial. So yeah, I think I would read it first and focus on that. And then if there's something that's especially insightful to you or you feel meaningful, then try to memorize those verses or highlight those verses so you can find them back again. So yeah, but I would start with the four Gospels, read through Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, go into Acts. That's the history section in the New Testament, and then read some of the Genesis in the Old Testament, and then expand from there. But like I said, you're welcome here. We're jumping all around. We do different sections each day of the week. Yeah, the Old Testament gives you background to the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Tell the heart, and New Testament tells you what we get to do and how to live. Yeah, good point there. Yeah, probably should read page by page. I think that's the, yep. You're kind of lazy at reading. So am I, friend. So am I. So the fact that I have committed to doing this helps me to stay committed to doing it. Another thing to do is commit to a time that you read every day at the same time, and a length of time that you can commit to. So if it's I can read 15 minutes a day every day, then read 15 minutes. If you can read a half an hour, read a half an hour. And then some people think the morning is the most ideal time to read, and some would say evening. I say whatever time you can fit it in your schedule is the best time, friend. So yeah, Jesus is real, though. That's all true. Well, I'm glad you feel that way, friend. I do too. Yep. Sometimes the enemy suppresses the truth. Yeah. Well, yeah, we all call the enemy a liar. So glad to have you in here, friend. You're welcome to join us here. There's other places too besides me. I'm not just going to promo me. That you can just have someone read the Bible to you too. You can get an app on your phone, or you can download, so you can just have someone read the Bible to you, and you can listen to it. And there's also some videos out there you could find too. I like what you're thinking there. Yeah, voices tell you that Big Bang is the answer, and yes, where did the Big Bang come from? That's what I've always asked as well. If the Big Bang happened, where did the stuff come from for the Big Bang to happen? We still don't have anyone who would make an argument that I should say scientist, who really will argue that something came from nothing. They still have to have something was always there. So if something was always there, to me, it's easier to believe that it was God, who's all powerful and all knowing and created all things, than it was something else that was just there and that just happened and then just did everything. That just does not seem likely to me. So, well, glad to have you in here, friend. Glad for the chat. If you have more questions or thoughts, you're welcome to do that here or in Discord or prayer concerns. Yeah, so most days about this time, I'm in here and we're reading through the Bible. And so on Tuesdays, we're reading through history. As I said here, Sundays, it's a gospel. Mondays, it's the law or the Torah. Wednesdays, it's an epistle. Thursdays, it's wisdom. Fridays, it's the prophets. And so another thing, Psalms are good to read all the time too. So if you this is one thing that often people will make a suggestion is read a Psalm every day and read a proverb every day. Those are good practices. So in addition to reading through a chapter or 5 minutes, 15 minutes in the New Testament in the Gospels, you could do that as well. Yeah, well, some people do. You're right. Some people do believe that there was a void with nothing, and an explosion happened. But a lot of scientists still think there was something that was there. Yeah, I don't believe nothing created everything either. Yeah, if that were true, then why hasn't nothing created things again? So, Dio, good to see you in here, friend. Good to have you. All right, I'm gonna try to find where we. Oh yeah, we had Saul, complaining about him being of such a small tribe, and we have him invited to the dinner, and so the cook. Okay, so we had Samuel telling the cook to bring the best piece of meat. So the cook took up the thigh with what was on it and set it in front of Saul. Samuel said, "Here is what has been kept from you. Eat, because it was set aside for you for the occasion from the time I said, I have invited guests." And Saul dined with Samuel that day. After they came down from the high place to the town, Samuel talked with Saul on the roof of his house. They rose about daybreak, and Samuel called to Saul on the roof, "Get ready, and I will send you on your way." When Saul got ready, he said to Samuel, he and Samuel went outside together. As they were going down to the edge of the town, Samuel said to Saul, "Tell the servant to go ahead of us." And the servant did so. "But you stay here for a while, so that I may give you a message from God." So we have God interacting with Samuel and now Saul. So then Samuel took a flask of olive oil and poured it on Saul's head and kissed him, saying, "Has not the Lord anointed you ruler over his inheritance?" Yeah, I was thinking the other variant would be his people. Yeah, his people are his inheritance, not the land. "When you leave me today, you will meet two men near Rachel's tomb at Zelzah on the border of Benjamin. They will say to you, 'The donkeys you sent out to look for have been found.' And now your father has stopped thinking about them and is worried about you. He is asking, 'What shall I do about my son?'" Okay, Saul already brought this up. And now we have, because of his servant, this whole other encounter with Samuel. So then you will go on from there until you reach the great tree of Tabor. 3 men going up to worship God at Bethel will meet you there. One will be carrying 3 young goats, another 3 loaves of bread, and another a skin of wine. I'm just pondering that. They will greet you and offer you 2 loaves of bread, which you will accept from them. So they have 3 goats, 3 loaves of bread, a skin of wine, and they're going to offer 2 loaves of bread. Yeah, I want to ponder the 3 goats, the 3 loaves of bread, but then it's only a skin of wine, not 3. They give you 2 loaves, and that's making me think of 5 loaves and 2 fishes, so that doesn't fit. So my mind's just bouncing around there all over the place. So anyone else have thoughts if for some reason this is just causing me to stop? 3 goats, 3 loaves of bread, and a skin of wine. I'm not sure what it is. If anyone else has a reference or thought on that, why don't you jump that in the chat, and I'll just see if get caught up on chat. God existed in the supernatural before natural existed, so I believe it could be very explanation as to how he existed prior. Oh, interesting way. Yeah, the very concept of time doesn't apply to him. Well, Einstein proved time is relative anyway. Either, and he could have a being because he created the concept of time. Oh, he couldn't be a being because he created death. Yeah. We all have our doubts, but we should find comfort and faith in the truth. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's always a commentary that you can go look up. I sometimes want to find more answers in the text or to find them from other passages I'm reading than to just run and look up what somebody else thought. I usually want to do all of that kind of thinking and pondering first before I go and look up what somebody else has thought, or what church fathers or the church has traditionally thought about things. It adds up to 7. Oh, I hadn't caught that. Interesting. See, that's the kind of things that that find me curious. Before the mountains were brought forth, or even you had formed the earth and the world, from everlasting to everlasting, you are God. Yes, good passage there. Yeah, the 3 seems significant. So that's what was drawing my attention to it, but I hadn't added together that there's 7 things. And 7 would be the number of completeness or perfection or totality, however it's meant in that section. So, yeah, oh, you're right. This is all prophecy from Samuel. Very specific things happen to possibly increase the faith of Saul and prove. Yeah, oh, good insight, Dio. So maybe it's not so much that it's 3, 3, and 1, but it's 3, 3, and 1, so that when it is 3, 3, and 1, Saul sees it and has further confidence in the words of Samuel that they are from God. Good point. Thanks for that. All right. So after that, you will go to Gibeah of God, where there is a Philistine outpost. As you approach the town, you will meet a procession of prophets coming down from the high place with the lyres, the timbrels, pipes, and harps being played before them, and they will be prophesying. The Spirit of the Lord will come powerfully on you, and you will prophesy with them, and you will be changed into a different person. Once these signs are fulfilled, do whatever your hand finds to do, for God is with you. Go down ahead of me to Gilgal. I will surely come down to you to sacrifice burnt offerings and fellowship offerings, but you must wait 7 days until I come to you and tell you what you are to do. Okay, so this seems just a little confusing. On one level, he says, do whatever your hand finds to do, and then he says, wait 7 days, I'll come to you and tell you what you are to do. But the do what your hand finds to do is not a reference to go do something here. It's the God is going to bless what you do going forward. So just clarifying that kind of thing. So yeah, so a processional, and then here, look, prophesying. Okay, so they are going to be prophesying with lyres and timbrels and pipes and harps and playing before the Lord. They will be prophesying. Okay, so maybe we should go look up that word. So we're in 10:5. So Nabal, to prophesy under influence of design spirits, also of false prophets, to prophesy under influence of divine spirits or of false prophets. Okay, I thought we were going to get a little bit more description there than we did, but sometimes the descriptions are just really short and generic because they think we know and understand. I was hoping it had more nuance here and would have said that prophesying is declaring the truths of God. That is what prophesying is. So what we read through in the Old Testament, a person who is prophesying, and they did have the Spirit as an aspect of it. So the Spirit in Samuel also does that in the description. The Spirit of God is going to come on you and you will prophesy. So, but why? What are you going to do? You're going to be declaring the truths of God. But we had the lyres, the timbrels, the pipes, and the harps, and they'll be prophesying. So they're going to be declaring the truths of God in song, in word. This is not the narrow thought that we have when we think of someone prophesying, which means simply predicting the future. If that were the case, then what Samuel just did was prophesying. Oh, by the way, it is. It's the word of God to Saul, so that when Saul has these things happen, he knows God's in control and God has truly picked him. So they're affirmations that are given in the form of knowledge of the future, so that when it happens, Saul knows this all came about because of God. But simply the idea of prophesying is more broad. It simply is declaring the truths of God. And so then by the lyre, the timbrel, the pipe, and the harp, those are all ways of they're declaring the truths of God. This doesn't have to be the first time they are spoken, that they are true, that they're brand new revelation. No, it's just simply being moved by God, by the Spirit of God, to declare the truths of God. That's how broad we need to think of this idea of prophesying. So, okay, so and he's supposed to go ahead of him, and he's supposed to wait 7 days. Okay, so this is in some ways a foreshadowing. Time is a concern with Saul all along. Saul goes to look for donkeys. He's gone for a long period of time. His father's going to come look for him because of it's been too long. Saul now is told to go and wait 7 days. Now we go, okay, he's waiting a week. Big deal. He's got this info ahead of time. But just as we keep going through the life of Saul, pay attention to when there's a period of time, and is Saul willing and able and ready to wait? Is Saul good with time and dealing with it? So, as Saul turned to leave Samuel, God changed Saul's heart, and all these signs were fulfilled that day. When he and his servant arrived at Gibeah, a procession of prophets met him. The Spirit of God came powerfully upon him, and he joined in their prophesying. When all those who had formerly known him saw him prophesying with the prophets, they asked each other, "What is this that has happened to the son of Kish? Is Saul among the prophets?" Interesting. A man who lived there answered, "And who is their father?" So they began the saying, "Is Saul among the prophets?" After Saul stopped prophesying, he went to the high place. Now Saul's uncle asked him and his servant, "Where have you been?" "Looking for the donkeys," he said. "But when we saw they were not to be found, we went to Samuel." Saul's uncle said, "Tell me what Samuel said to you." Saul replied, "He assured us that the donkeys had been found," but he did not tell his uncle what Samuel had said about the kingship. Okay, so question. He doesn't tell his uncle about the kingship. Saul has been asked, what did Samuel say? Should Saul have told him about the kingship? Not saying right or wrong here, not passing judgment, just asking the question, what do we think? From the text, Samuel pulls Saul aside, so his servant doesn't know this. Only Saul knows this. So part of this has already been fulfilled, and he knows it. Should he tell his uncle? Is that part of it? Or should he not, because Samuel pulled him aside? So here lies the thought. Is it deceptive to not tell him this part? Or is it confidentiality, and he needs to keep confidentiality? We'll see what happens. Okay. So Samuel summoned the people of Israel to the Lord at Mizpah and said to them, "This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. I brought Israel up out of Egypt." And I delivered you from the power of the Egyptians and all the kingdoms that oppressed you. But you have now rejected your God, who saves you out of all your distresses and calamities, and have said, no, appoint a king over us. So now present yourselves before the Lord by your tribe and clans. Okay, so now we're going to take action. Let me get caught up on chat a second. So I also saw this source which shows recently science has made a big leap and starting to catch up with God. Oh, interesting. So when I read the Bible, what other advice should I take in mind about reading it? I was thinking taking a verse by heart, but reading page by page is better. I think you can do both. Like I was kind of saying, is as you're going along, there will be verses that will stand out to you, and a good practice for you or anyone is just write those verses down and carry them with you for the day. Write them on a sticky note. Put them around where you're going to see them, or a verse that you can meditate on for a period of time. You put it on a sticky note, put it on your mirror. You see it every morning when you get up, you're brushing your teeth, you're washing your hands. You can spend a little time focusing on that verse, that passage. So yeah, there's so many things to do. I'm going to say I don't think there are any wrong things to do if you're spending time in God's Word, if you're meditating on God's Word. They will be all beneficial and pay dividends. Yeah. So we have Samuel now going to take everyone by tribe and clan. This happens several times, sometimes for good, sometimes for bad, where we take all the clans together, or the tribes, we figure out which tribe it is. How is he doing that? With casting lots potentially, or just hearing from God, or with the Tumi, let me scroll back, the Tumi and the Urim. I can never remember those names. The Thummim, and that was a while back. Oh, there, I just saw it and then it scrolled past. It was back in Leviticus. All right. Yeah, the Urim and the Thummim. Yes, the Urim and the Thummim. He has those, and that could potentially be what he's doing here. In order to know who it could be casting lots, there's a couple of options here. So when Samuel had all Israel come forward by tribes, the tribe of Benjamin was taken by lot. Okay, so that's the way that they used it, by lot. Then he brought forward the tribe of Benjamin, clan by clan, and Matri's clan was taken. Finally, Saul, son of Kish, was taken. But when they looked for him, he was not to be found. So they inquired further of the Lord, has this man come here yet? And the Lord said, yes, he has hidden himself among the supplies. Here's the man who's a foot taller than everyone else and is the one who should, or they're going to pick as king. He knows he's going to be picked as king. He's been anointed as king. The Spirit of God has come upon him and he has prophesied. And what's he doing? He's hiding in the supplies. Why? Is it because he doesn't want to? Is he fearful of this? What is the cause of him not wanting to be here and do that? So we're almost done here. So let's finish that. They ran and brought him out. So God has to tell him he's hiding over there. And as he stood among the people, he was a head taller than any of the others. Samuel said to all the people, do you see the man the Lord has chosen? There is no one among all the people. Okay, so maybe it's just me. Why would I pick the guy that's hiding? If that's not a red flag, this is the guy. This is the guy. But he stands up. He's a head taller. I forget it. I was wrong. I guess he's the guy. I mean, clearly, Look at him. What a specimen of kingship. Samuel explained to the people the rights and duties of kingship. He wrote them down on a scroll and deposited it before the Lord. Then Samuel dismissed the people to go to their own homes. Saul also went to his home at Gibeah, accompanied by valiant men whose hearts God had touched. But some scoundrels said, "How can this fellow save us?" They despised him and brought him no gifts, but Saul kept silent. Oh. So there were some who had the thoughts I had. How can this fellow save us? They despised him and brought him no gifts. Why did they? Because they despised him, and in despising him, they were despising God. There's the problem. There's your problem, folks. Despising the person God has chosen to lead is a despising of God. They brought him no gifts, and Saul just kept silent. Oh, if Job's friends had only kept silent. Different scenario. This is being dishonored, and he kept silent. God being dishonored, and he keeps silent. Maybe he should have spoke up on behalf of God. We don't have any more info to do that. But valiant men whose hearts God touched, they followed. Scoundrels, on the other hand, they weren't so much into Saul. Okay, so that's our reading for today. So let's see what else there was in chat. Does the verse have the most impact rather than storytelling paragraph? But I'd rather take verses to reflect on rather than reading paragraphs or stories. Well, in some ways it depends on the story. And I would say parables are really good to reflect on, and it's hard to necessarily remember a single verse from a parable, but like reflecting on the entire parable of the man with two sons, I do that regularly. Hey, Miss Artsy Pants, good to see you, friend. First time chatter. Where else was I? Yeah, and then the verse take to heart. Yeah, I think that's a great thing. You take a verse, dwell on it, and use that as a thing throughout your day, throughout your week. If we're today, they'd say he had anxiety disorder. Oh, perhaps they would say that. Great. I appreciate you asking questions and that you're going to be reading. That is great. Is Jesus coming soon? I do not know the answer. And then, of course, it depends on what do we mean by soon. Soon is a relative term. The church has felt that, that soon was going to be in their lifetime. So I, too, am going to say yes. But I don't know if soon is in my lifetime or not, because we don't know in regards to when God has... he thinks about it. I'm trying to think of there's a passage that talks about God is not slow as we think of slow, but he is not willing that any would perish and wants all to repent. So in God's timing, it will happen. If that's soon for us, I don't know. Is it soon for God? Yes. So yeah, that's how I guess I would answer it. You watch a lot of YouTube. Well, there's a lot of videos you could watch of people sharing and reading scripture, so you can find that there. And the videos keep saying the end times are here. Oh, yes, there are people who are going to say the end times are here. There have been people saying the end times are here for 2,000 years. And most of what I would point to as that Jesus says, when you see all these things, those are just the first birth pains. We are supposed to expect Jesus' return. We are supposed to look forward to Jesus' return. We are supposed to anticipate it, but we're not supposed to just sit around trying to say the date that it's actually going to happen. No, we need to be sharing what God has done with us, with others. And I would rather spend time doing that than worrying about, is Jesus' return in 10 days, in 10 years, or 10,000 years? Just not the direction I want to spend my time and effort. And that's not to say that people who do are doing anything wrong, I'm just saying I'm more interested in other things than trying to figure out when Jesus' return is. I think those things are written to assure us that it is going to happen. So just like we had in our passage here, they were given to us so when we see them happening, we know that God was right. Why was it the three goats and the 3 pieces of bread and the wine container, so that when it happened they knew it was of God? I think that's what those are supposed to be for, not for us to go wandering around and going, when am I going to run into the goat and the bread and the wine? So I hope that makes sense and is clear. Every generation of people, sorry, jumped on me, think it's the end times. Yes. You'll get the hiding verses in the heart of Psalms. Oh, yes. But to start, you'll want to know the big picture. It's important to note the verse numbers were added for reference purposes, but originally they were full books. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I've been here. You are correct. Love that insight. I've stored up your word in my heart that I may not sin against you. You rated me once. Yeah, I have. I've rated you before, Miss Artsy Pants. Good to see you in here, friend. Thanks, man, for guiding me about the Bible. Absolutely. And like I said, you're welcome in here. I'm here most days, Monday through Friday, about this time. So, but do not overlook this one fact, beloved, that the Lord, one day is 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is a day. The Lord is not slow to fulfill his promises, as some count slowness, but is patient towards you, not willing that any should perish, but, sorry, jumped on me, that all should reach repentance. Yeah, see, I didn't remember exactly where that was, but I remembered the heart of what Peter was saying there. Yeah, they saying Jesus is coming soon. Yeah, yeah, again, we're back to the what do you mean by soon, and why are you declaring that? What do you want people to do in regards to that? I'm like, what? How do you know? They keep saying they had a dream or a vision, etc. Oh, that's a total side thing that I don't want to paint a broad brush, because I've seen some of those videos maybe you're talking about where people are declaring they had visions and dreams, and Scripture clearly declares that people do. But I don't know those people personally, and therefore I don't feel qualified to address or talk about them, nor have I seen their videos or their other things. So, yeah, I'm going to say on one level I'm skeptical that they did. I'm sad that I'm skeptical. I would love to believe that everyone who declares that is being honest and truthful. It's crazy since they keep repeating the same things every year. I panic because I'm not ready yet. There's other passages say that no one knows the day nor the time nor the hour, but we are to be ready. And Jesus tells parables about being ready for when the bridegroom comes. And so I think that's part of it. Yeah, again, I think soon, but I don't know what soon means. I want to be ready and be prepared, and I want to act as though it were today. But I think there's several things that I think have to happen, but I also think that God can already have said that they did happen and us not necessarily know or see that they've happened. Like, we can be hidden from seeing things, just like those on the walk to Emmaus did not see and know it was Jesus until he broke bread with them, and then their eyes were open. So I think when God has the perfect timing for him to come, we'll have hindsight and our eyes will be open. Until then, I think we're to be about the work of the kingdom. So, yeah, I'm not going to disagree with those signs pointing to things, but he also says, and those are just the beginning of birth pains, is also a phrase. So I would say maybe we're at the beginning of birth pains. If we're at the beginning of birth pains, how long is labor? Well, it depends on if it's a human, that's 8 months. If it's a rabbit, that's a lot shorter. If it's an elephant, that's several years. If it's the earth, I have no idea. Yeah, our job's not to worry about when this earthly life will end, but to be ready. Absolutely. Yeah. Eichmann here. Agree with you 100% there, friends. So